years, and we still have that kind of relationship. So hopefully we'll get him on there. Oh, hi there, Pat. Introducing him. So I'm going to pass the mic to that, and we'll see how this works.
All yours, Pat.
Hey, how you guys all doing? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Gotcha. Yeah, buddy.
Okay, thumbs up. Everybody thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, very good. Well, I am absolutely honored and thrilled to be there via this technology today. It just warms my heart to see all of you there and supporting such an incredible man in Bill McCarrick, who's been such an amazing father figure in my life all these years. Some of you I know that are there, others I don't, but I hope to meet all of you, and I'm excited to present for 10 or 15 minutes today to just share some thoughts. But before I do, let's give a big round of applause to Dan and Charity McCarrick for putting this all together and having you guys come and recognize Bill and all of his accomplishments. So thank you for that. Also, I want to thank Carla McCarrick. So let's give Carla a big hand. If we give her a big hand, she's been an amazing part of this journey for all of these years. And in interviewing Bill in the book, Carla has helped with some details and some facts. And so I thought I'd share one quick story about Carla, and that was that she showed up to one of Bill's wrestling practices. And she was absolutely disgusted at what she saw. She was unbelievable. She couldn't believe, like mind blown as to what it was. She could not believe how hard that Coach McCarrick was pushing these players, pushing these wrestlers. And she was just shaking her head, couldn't believe it, thought everybody was going to quit. And then that night home, once they got home over the dinner table, she said, Bill, is that like all of your practices? Do you work them that hard? And Bill said, no, that was an easy practice. and then she went on to say, Bill, and so you do this every day for them? And then she said, and do they even like you? And I thought that was quite humorous and quite funny about that. So I want to acknowledge Bill Tribley in the audience today. I want to acknowledge Tim Hammond, acknowledge Brent McCarrick, Fred Lab, and some of the others. Hopeful that Rob Van Pelt is going to be there pretty soon as well. And so just want to acknowledge you guys. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for the contribution that you're there, that you're there. And I apologize that I was not able to attend today. But like I said, I hope to come in August. But last and not least, I want to acknowledge our friend, our brother, our husband, our father, our coach, our mentor, our best friend. If you guys could join me and stand up and give Bill McCarrick a warm standing ovation and show him what he means to you. So I'm going to share a couple Bill McCarrick stories. I'm going to share some Bill McCarrick isms that he said to so many of us over the years. But before I do, I want to mention the book that Bill and I are doing together. I'm writing the book, and he's written the foreword of the book, and he's written the afterword of the book. And the book is titled The Last Undefeated Season. It's leadership lessons from the 1981 Owasso St. Paul Blue Waves championship season, and it's a tribute to the life, the leadership, and the legacy of Coach Bill McCarrick. I'm about 90% done with the manuscript, and my plan is to personally deliver it to Coach Bill in August and hand deliver it to him at his home. And so that is the plan, and I need your help, and I'm asking for your help. Currently, right now, we have 11 testimonials for the book. And what I'm asking for, if Bill coached you or you coached with Bill, or if Bill has left an impression on your life in any way, I would love it if you could text me a 4 to 12 sentence testimonial about the life, about the leadership, about the influence, about the impact that Coach Bill McCarrick has had on your life. Tell us what he's meant to you. and we'll capture your testimonial and we'll put it in the first few pages of the book. Again, currently we have 11 of those testimonials, and I want to shoot that number up there to 50. And so what I need you guys to do is take down my number. It's super easy to remember, and also Dan McCarrick can get it to you afterwards. But just remember, I live in Maui, Hawaii, but I was in Seattle for about 20 years. So I have a Seattle area code. So if you forget the area code, just Google the Seattle area code, which is 206. Again, 206. And then my phone number is 310-1200. Again, that's 310-1200. 206-310-1200. Spell out your first and your last name. Let me know what years you either coached with Bill or played for Bill and at what school. And then include a 4 to 12 sentence testimonial that we're going to put into the book. And if you could do that in the next 2 or 3 days, let me give you by Tuesday. Tuesday would be the deadline because we're almost ready to send that to the editor. Bill and I would be so very grateful. So why the title? Why the title of Last Undefeated Season? And by the way, 1981 was 44 years ago. So Bill and I and some of those players, we're getting to be middle-aged now. And that was a long time ago. And so it's hard to remember all of what the events happened, but I've interviewed Bill, I've interviewed Dan, I've interviewed Carla. And the book is half about that story, but the second half of the book is about Bill's life, his legacy, his evolution as a coach. You know, he's coaching the Little Greens, and then he coached St. Paul, and then he coached Wasso Junior High, and then he went on to coach at Morris High School for 12 or 13 years, and then Weberville, and then Corona, and then that doesn't even account all of the wrestling teams and all of the baseball teams that he's coached over the years. And what's most amazing about his career, and I try to capture his whole life story in the back half of the book, is he's not just my coach. Coach Bill is your coach as well. He's your friend as well. He's your father figure as well. And I didn't want this book just to be about one season. I wanted it to be about one lifetime, one team, one legend. And there's an old saying that says, if you want to be a legend, if you want to leave a legacy, you need to do legendary things. And Coach Bill McCarrick has certainly done that. And I've tried to capture that in the back half of the book. And so just know that this story is your story as well. And hopefully you'll be able to get a copy of that in August, and it will also be on Amazon as an ebook, and you guys can download it as well. But the Last Undefeated Season, when I was 11 years old, we had 19 guys that tried out for the St. Paul Blue Wave junior high football team. And you didn't really have to try out. All you had to do was survive the practices. And if you could survive the practices, then you made the team. So there were no cuts. Bill wasn't cutting anybody. He was trying to recruit the water boys and the ball boys to play for us. Even though they were in only 4th and 5th grade, we needed every body that we could get. And so we went into the season with 19 guys. We finished the season with 12 guys at the end, but then our quarterback broke his wrist and we were down to 11. And so because Bill knew the numbers would be so scarce, that he would have to have everybody start and go both ways, playing both offense and defense. And so he thought that he was going to work us extra hard in practice, and I'm sure that sounds familiar to many of you that played for him, because if you have survived a Bill McCarrick practice, then probably that's given you an unfair advantage in life. Because everything after a Bill McCarrick practice would be a walk in the park compared to how challenging those were. So, on the first week of practice, we learned that our team bus, which was responsible for taking us from St. Paul's School about a mile and a half south to Bryant Field, where we would practice, the team bus broke down. Apparently there were like 26 code violations and a major exhaust issue. And so the parents were shocked by this and dumbfounded, and they thought, we're going to put together a carpool. And we're going to have every parent get out of work early, and we'll put together a carpool, and then we'll transfer the kids to and from their practice every day at 3 and then home at 6. But Coach Bill wanted nothing to do with that. He knew if we only were going to have 11, 12, 13 guys on the team, that we needed to be the best, well-conditioned team in the entire Lansing Catholic Central League. And by the way, some of our opponents were St. Gerard. And St. Gerard had 70 to 80 guys on their team. We had 11, 12, or 13. So Bill decided that instead of allowing us to ride in the carpool, he just decided that we were going to strap up in our helmets, our shoulder pads, our cleats, and we were going to run on the streets and run on the sidewalks all the way from St. Paul School, all the way down South Cedar, take a right on Hammond Avenue, pass by Bryant Field, and then go to the very back corner to start our practice. So we started with a 1.5-mile run. And then we did all kinds of tackling drills, the Oklahoma drill, the gauntlet, and then we go to conditioning with the gut busters, and then the leg lifts, and then it wouldn't be Bill McCarrick if it weren't for his infamous time lapse. So before the practice was over, we'd be doing 2 and 3 and 4, and I think one time we even did 5 time lapses. And then we thought we were done with practice. But no, we still didn't have any way to get home. So as it was approaching 6 o'clock at night, we would then run home 1.5 miles all the way back to practice. And maybe it was 5:30 by the time we left, and everybody was home by 6. And then we jump in the showers, and then we would go home and try to survive to live another day. And what's so amazing is in the interviews with Bill and Carla, I didn't realize this, but after Bill did a 3-hour practice at St. Paul, he would get in his car, drive up to Adams Field, where he was also the defensive coordinator for the Little Green Giants. So he would be at practice at St. Paul from 3 to 6, and then he'd be at Adams Park from 6 until 8, doing 2 teams. And many, many times during wrestling season, baseball season, he was coaching 3 or 4 or 5 baseball teams at a time, 2 or 3 wrestling teams at a time, 2 football teams at a time. And this was something that happened year-round. I mean, who does that? That's mind-boggling. But that was the commitment of this man that changed our lives. So to make a long story short, I don't want to give away the ending, so you're going to have to get the book when it comes out in August. But at the end of the day, we beat, in Lansing, at St. Gerard, our roster of 11 guys, we beat St. Gerard's mighty Falcons, who had 70 to 80 guys on their team. We beat them 13-0. And my claim to fame is I was the backup second-string quarterback that went in and played the second half of the game when our quarterback got hurt. So that's my biggest claim to fame. And I'm proud to have been the backup second-string quarterback for the 1981 St. Paul Blue Jays. And by the way, the quarterback on their team was John Smoltz. And anybody, if you know baseball, John Smoltz went on to have a 20-year Major League Baseball career pitching for the Atlanta Braves, was a Cy Young award-winning baseball pitcher, and was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And not only that, they had Bob Fada. Bob Fada went on to play tight end at Michigan State. And yet Coach McCarrick's Blue Wave somehow figured out a way to take Goliath down in this David versus Goliath story. So the reason why it's titled this, when we went 6-0, and we finished that season as undefeated, when you're 11 years old and you go undefeated, you think that you're going to go on and win every game in high school. And Fred Lapp is there, and we know that Fred Lapp knows, and I know that we didn't do so well, in varsity football at Owasso. Probably if we would have recruited some of those Morris kids to play for Owasso, we kind of probably had won some games. Or maybe if they would have let Coach Bill McCarrick coach at Owasso for the varsity, we would have won some games. But when you're an 11-year-old kid and you're on cloud 9, having finished an undefeated season, you think you're going to go undefeated next year.
Closer, Dan.
You think you're going to go to high school and run the field and go undefeated those years, but yet we didn't. You think that you're going to go play college football and win the national championship, and yet we didn't. And then, of course, you think you're going to play in the NFL. And yet, none of us from Owasso has done that other than Brad Van Pelt. But the point of it is, we left that year as champions thinking And of course, we're going to have 10 or 5 or 7 or 15 more undefeated seasons. And yet, most of us, and I can't speak for the others that went for other schools, most of us never in our lifetime ever experienced the thrill, the joy, the brotherhood, the camaraderie, the coaching of playing for Coach Bill McCarrick as we did in the 1981 St. Paul Blue Wave Championship season. So that's the reason for the title, the Last Undefeated Season. And we thought that Bill was teaching us how to win games. But what we all learned was that Bill all along was teaching us leadership lessons as to how to have an undefeated life. He turned us from young boys into young men. And no adversity that any of us that have played for him, that includes all of you former players, I bet you would agree with me with this, that all of us, we've had an unfair advantage in life. In family, in relationships, in business, in our career, we've had an unfair advantage over everyone else. And it's not an unfair advantage about money. It's not an unfair advantage about any of that. It's about an unfair advantage because Bill took us and showed us how to increase and step up our mind to overcome pain, to stretch and go further than we felt we could ever do. And he had a way of doing that for all of us. So raise your hands right now if you feel as a player you've had an unfair advantage in life because of Coach Bill McCarrick. Let me see some hands in that audience. Anybody felt that way? And that's what this brotherhood of Bill McCarrick is all about. That is his legacy. And I will never forget that. And that is why we're writing this book. So I first met Bill McCarrick at the Little Greens. I was a scrawny little fourth grader playing inside linebacker. Fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, I played inside linebacker for Coach Bill McCarrick for the Little Greens. And I think we won more games than we lost, but we finished that season, and I know Fred Lapp participated in this. Some of you else might have played for the kick football program. But we finished that season each and every year with a jamboree at Wilman Field, which is right around the corner from you. And over the loudspeaker where Pudge Hahn used to say, "Here come those Trojans," there was an old school 1970s record player up there in the announcer booth. And on that announcer booth, they would play the Gonna Fly Now Rocky theme song over the loudspeaker. And the Blue Bombers, and the Reds, and the Green Giants, and the Golden Bears, we were bouncing off the wall. We thought we were in the NFL. We were 8 and 9 and 10, 11, no, 8, 9, and 10, playing at Wilman Field to the Rocky music. And this is what Bill did under his leadership of coaching for the Little Green Giants for all of those years, and then being president of the board and raising money and donating that money to the boxing club, donating that money to the cheerleading organization. So he wasn't just a coach, he was also an administrator. He was the leader of the entire program. And I know Fred Lapp and I, we look back at those days, playing at Wilman Field, aspiring to play there someday as a varsity player, listening to that Rocky music. And that music and that experience is something that I will take with me forever. And Bill, we have you to thank for that. So my goal today was not just to come bark at you and to come speak at you. I wanted to share with you a little bit about Coach McCarrick off of the field. My junior and senior year, when I played varsity football at Owasso High School, and I already told you that Fred Lapp and I struggled a little bit in those years. Coach Bill McCarrick was the junior high football coach. And then on Friday nights, he would volunteer on the chain game. And as I played inside linebacker, I'd look over and I'd see Bill right there on the sideline every single play. And as NFL player to beat Courtney Hawkins of Cliff Beecher as he ran up and scored 63 points against us my junior year, and we lost 63-0. I should have known that he was NFL talent. He went on to play for the Steelers and went on to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But there was Coach Bill saying, keep your head up. It's going to be okay. And I'd look over to him and he'd look over to me. And a lot of people don't know this, but my senior year, as the captain of the team, I was challenged with the task of giving the pregame speeches. We started 0-1 and 0-2 and 0-3 and then 0-4. And every single Thursday night before every varsity football game, I would call Coach Bill and we'd spend an hour on the phone. And Coach Bill would give me a pep talk. And he'd say, try this, share this with your players. Do this, do that, watch out for this. Be careful of that. And I will tell you, to have a second father like him in my life, guiding me through that season and that time in my life, again, no one can take that away from me. And I will be forever grateful for those phone conversations, which literally gave me the confidence to keep fighting. And there we were, October 1986. Halloween night, we were 0-8, playing another team that was 0-8. And not only did we lose that game, but we lost in double overtime. I'm sure Fred Lapp remembers that, and we finished the perfect defeated season in 1986. And I'm telling you, if we would have had some of those Morris players, Weberville players, Corona players, we would have done a whole lot better, wouldn't we, Fred Lapp? I know you would. Fred, you can share everybody else what we went through.
He will.
So what I want to talk to you today is I want to make this not all serious. I wanted to make this funny. I wanted to kind of reflect back and see if I could make you laugh. Because my biggest goal today is to make Coach Bill McCarrick laugh. That's my biggest goal. My biggest goal. Bill is the ultimate Vince Lombardi motivator. He doesn't need to be motivated about anything. Sure, he's got a health challenge, but just like everything in life he's gone through, he's going to overcome this as well. So Bill doesn't need to be motivated. He needs to be entertained and humored. So Bill, this is for you. And this is for all of you as former players. I have created, over the last week, 17 different Coach Bill isms. And I don't even know if an ism is a word or a phrase, but a Coach Bill ism is some of the things that he would say to us at practice and at games. And every time I mention one of these 17 isms, if you've ever heard these words come out of his mouth, I want you to raise your hand and wave your hand just like that and say, oh yeah, he said that to me too. Because I don't know if these Coach Bill isms were just shared at St. Paul and at Little Greens. And by the way, Bill also coached us in baseball at St. Paul. And we played our home games right there in that pony field, right where you guys are sitting today. Coach Bill McCarrick was in the dugout, and we were having fun and winning games on that exact same field. But here's a list of 17 Coach Bill isms that he would always say to us. And again, I want you to raise your hand and let out a big belly laugh if he's ever said any of these. So here's the first one first. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was in the 4th grade, I took a full-on fullback hit from Scott Ordway of the Little Greens, and I got the wind knocked out of me. And having never played tackle football before the 4th grade, I never had the wind knocked out of me. So there I was, getting plowed over and having the wind knocked out of me. And I literally thought I was going to die. It hurt that bad. And so Bill rushed up to me as I'm laying on the ground dying, thinking that they're going to call an ambulance, and he grabbed my belt right under my belly button, grabbed my belt, pulled it up, and he said, just breathe. You're going to be okay. You just got the wind knocked out of you, and you're not going to die. So raise your hand. Anybody ever heard those words before from Coach Bill? Anybody ever had that? Just breathe. It's okay. You just got the wind knocked out of you. And then the next one. Maybe he only said this to the Little Greens, because I don't know if he'd use this word amongst mighty high school football players. He used to say, do you have an owie? Do you have an owie? Are you hurt? Do you have an owie? And I don't even know how to spell owie. I spelled it O-W-W-W-Y. I don't even know how to spell it. So word check is probably going to fix that one in the book. In fact, I'm getting hot. Let me turn my fan on here. Hold on. Okay, I'm sure you all heard this one. Number 3. Are you hurt or are you injured? Raise your hand if you heard that before. Are you hurt? Are you injured? If you're hurt, we're going to send you back in the game. If you're injured, you need to stay out. And then typically after you hear that question, are you hurt or are you injured, you're going to hear this. He'd say, here, come over here. Here, let me tape it. Here, come over here, let me tape it. Anybody? Raise your hand. Anybody have him say, let me tape it for you? Okay, number 5. And this speaks to you offensive linemen. And I never played offensive lineman for him, so that was a good thing. But I remember him always yelling out to the offensive lineman. He'd say, your job is to protect the quarterback. Remember that. Your job is to protect the quarterback. Anybody heard that before? Anyone? Okay, here's one of my all-time favorites. Because I was a basketball player growing up. And Bill would always say, you know, Patrick, I think you should try out for wrestling. I think you'd be good at it. Anybody heard that before? Did he try to recruit any of you to the wrestling team? I think you should try out for wrestling. You'd be good at it. And then in the very next sentence, he said, you know, basketball is not a real sport.
Here.
He said that many, many times. Okay, and then I'm sure we hear this. You'd hear Green Bay Packers, yada, yada, yada. Green Bay Packers, yada, yada, yada. Green Bay Packers, this and that. Green Bay Packers, this and that. And Green Bay Packers. Anybody ever talk about the Green Bay Packers?
Never.
And by the way, we talked to him earlier on video, and he's wearing a Green Bay Packers football shirt. For goodness sakes. And then as long as he'd say that, you know, he'd say this. He'd say, you know, Vince Lombardi once said this. Or Vince Lombardi once said that. Or Vince Lombardi this or Vince Lombardi that. Anybody heard him talk about Vince Lombardi? There we go. Here's another one of my favorites. He used to say this. You know, back in the 70s when we played for Coach Eiler, back in the 70s, you know, back in the day, we never wore arm pads. You know that, right? Patrick, we never wore arm pads. Did he ever tell you that story? And then when we were doing gut busters, he'd say, get your knees up, higher, 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 get your knees up. Anybody heard that before? Get those knees up. He would say that a bunch. And this one might not be so funny and more serious, but he'd always say, you need to visualize winning the game in advance. You gotta visualize it. You gotta see it in your mind first. Visualize it. Go to sleep tonight. Think about the game. Visualize yourself making that tackle, catching that pass, throwing that touchdown, making that block. I don't know anybody in the 1970s and the early 80s that was talking about visualization. And then this is one of my all-time favorites. He would always say this, because he was standing right behind us as the defensive coordinator. And of course, we'd miss the tackle here and a miss the tackle there. And he'd yell out, he'd say, what was that? So he would ask us a question, what was that? And then of course we'd come up with some kind of answer because he just asked the question. And then he'd reply, I don't want to hear any excuses. No excuses. So he'd set us up with a question and then he'd come back with a no excuses thing. And then, in one little green practice, running back Trent Rappoon came through the line one time, put a stiff arm right into my face mask, put me right on my back. And of course he said, Patrick, what was that? And I said, he stiff armed me. He said, I don't want to hear any excuses. And then he said this, and I'll never forget it. He said, the next time the running back tries to put a stiff arm on you, I want you to take his arm and completely rip it out of his socket. And I promise you, if you do that, that, he will never stiff arm you ever again. And so about 5 plays later, Greg Bigger handed off the ball to Trent Rapone, and he came through the line, put that same left stiff arm right in my face mask. I grabbed him by the elbow, grabbed him by the arm, and I spun him around about 3 times, and I threw him into the ground, and I was doing that. I was trying to rip his arm out of his socket. And unfortunately, the arm didn't come out, but Coach Bill was right. Because he never stiff armed me ever again. So that was the defensive coordinator mindset, and that's what he was doing. Okay, is Pat Carmody there by any chance today?
No, he had a medical reason. He had to go to the hospital.
Okay, so Pat Carmody, he was supposed to run to and from practice. But unfortunately, Pat Carmody didn't run that much. So Coach Bill McCarrick would be in his 1973 Mercury sedan two-door with the tackling dummies hanging out the trunk, the football bag, and the cones. And we're running, clinking our cleats on the sidewalk. And then there'd be Pat Carmody, and he'd slow down and he'd start to walk. And so we heard this again and again. We might have heard it 500 times that season. Coach McCarrick would yell out his passenger window, "Run, Carmody, run! Run, Carmody, run!" So we heard that a lot. And then towards the end of the season, running home from the season, Carmody got hungry. And Coach McCarrick was back at the locker room unloading the tackling dummies. And Coach didn't know this until after the fact, but Pat Carmody took a 2-block detour, stopped over at his friend Todd Back's house because they were making pizza. And so he grabbed a box of pizza, and he brought the box of pizza home, and we saw him about 15, 20 minutes later waddling into the parking lot, approaching the locker room with a pizza in his hand. And we all just cracked up laughing because that was Pat Carmody. And then, another one of a Coach Billism, because he was the biggest fan, and I'd always debate with him, is Ray Nitschke better than Dick Butkus? And we'd have that debate for years and years. And I believe Ray Nitschke, number 66, which was the number that I wore my senior year, partly, in fact, because Bill McCarrick converted me to a Ray Nitschke fan. And he used to say, Patrick, Ray Nitschke would have made that tackle. Ray Nitschke would have made that tackle. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And then he'd say, Jerry Kramer would have made that block. Yeah, we know that. And then lastly, at the end of every season, Coach Bill would say this. He'd say, even though I've given you all these accolades all year long, I don't want any of this to go to your head. And the reason why is because I'm going to expect even more from you next year. Again, I'm going to expect even more from you next year. And we'd hear that again and again and again. So by a raised hand, raise your hand if he's ever told you that he's going to expect even more from you next year. And so as we finish up, I want to share a couple quotes that speaks to Coach Bill McCarrick. And there's an author and a speaker that wrote this quote. His name is Dr. Robert Brooks. And he said, one of the most important factors that contributes to the resilience in children is the presence of at least one person who believes in them. And all of you that are sitting there in your lawn chairs, we're all part of this same brotherhood. And we know that in our lives, it was Coach Bill McCarrick that was that one person that believed in us. So thank you, Bill McCarrick, for being that one person that believed in us so much. There's another old saying that says there's only 2 things you can leave behind on this earth. One is your children, and the other is your art. And Bill has brought 4 amazing sons into this world. And I know Brent McCarrick is there today. And what a beautiful thing that Brent had an opportunity to play for his father and for his father Bill to Coach Brent for those 4 years. And Brent, thank you for the tremendous contribution that you've made to the book and the Facebook messages back and forth. But Bill has made a difference on the world through his children and now through his grandchildren. But all of us that have played for him can also be his heart. He molded us from the youth of yesterday to the leaders of today. He turned us from boys until men. He made a difference for us. When our moms and dads were at work, working an 8 to 10 hour day, he was at our practices coaching us, inspiring us, leading us, influencing us, making us laugh, sometimes making us almost cry because of the pain. But almost always he had a smile on his face. Coach Bill's smile was infectious. He was always laughing. He might be the only person that I know that was a Marine drill sergeant and then would make us laugh as he's driving us into the ground. I don't know how that's possible. And I remember in one of the interviews that we did, Coach Bill kept saying, I can't believe it. I kept blowing the whistle, and they kept showing up under the goalpost to get ready for another time lapse. I just assumed at some point they were going to revolt against me and just say no. But we never did, because we had the best coach in the history of the entire world. So Bill, what have you meant to me? What have you meant to these players? You've meant everything to us. You have been that supposed force. You have been that one person and that presence who has believed in us to give us that unfair advantage in life. Other than my father, Jack Snow, Coach Bill, you have been the single greatest influence in my life. And I don't know how that I can repay you. The least thing that I can do is help you get this book done. You have been a best friend, a father figure, a coach, a mastermind mentor, and more than anything else, you have been an example to me as to what it means to be a man. You've been an example to me of what it means to be a father. You've been an example to me of what it means to be a leader. You've been an example to me and to everyone sitting in those chairs as to what it means to take an active role in our community. Over the years, I've coached about 20 of my kids football, lacrosse, and basketball, and we know it's not a real sport, but I still had to coach. And then baseball over these years. And there's one more goal that I have and one more regret. And Coach Bill, that goal is that I want to coach a football team with you. And Fred Lapp just told me that he coached with you for 5 years. Tim Hammond coached with you, I think, 9 years. Dan McCarrick coached with you for 15 different teams. And thank you, Dan, for always being a present in our Little Greens program and for St. Paul. Having you there as the nice guy, encouraging us and pushing us, it meant a lot to us. What could be better than one Bill McCarrick to have two Bill and Dan McCarrick? So you've meant everything to me. And so some of you may know this, others of you may not. But one of my biggest goals in my life is to own an NFL football team. And you might think that's the craziest thing that you've ever heard in your life. But if you believe in Bill McCarrick, you know that there's always a way. It might be a 1 in a million long shot, but it's still something worthwhile of pursuing. And so right now, I'm going to announce that I'm hiring Coach Bill McCarrick to be the director of football operations for the Hawaii Tiger Sharks. And we're going to open up as an expansion franchise in the NFL in about 3 or 4 years. So Bill, I need you to overcome and get past this health challenge that you're dealing with. Because you are part of this dream whether you want to be or not. and your legacy, your spirit, your love, your leadership, your friendship, your mentorship, your brotherhood will reside in my spirit, my heart, my soul for an entire lifetime. And for all you other brothers that are out there right now today listening, you are part of this as well. And I can't wait to meet all of you. I can't wait to meet Bill Tribley. I can't wait to meet Tim Hammond. I can't wait to hang out with Brent McCarrick some more. I can't wait to see you guys in August and deliver this book to you. Bill being your inside linebacker for 3 years in the Little Green. Being your backup quarterback and finishing the last 2.5 games at St. Paul as a second string quarterback. Playing first base for you for the St. Paul Blue Waves. And playing first base and outfield for you for Ann Arbor Railroad for 2 years. Without question, that has been the single greatest experience of my childhood. And I can't thank you more. So thank you for being you. Thank you for making us laugh in the little football practice when you take your eyeball out and you show it to us. And as a 8 and 9 and 10-year-old kid, my eyeballs had never seen anything like that. But it was the funniest thing that I've ever experienced. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for pushing me. Thank you for loving us, all of us here at that field. Thank you for pushing all of us. Thank you for seeing more within us than what we could see in ourselves. Bill, you're not just my coach. You're not just the St. Paul Blue Waves 11, 12, 13 players coach. You're not just us Little Greens coach. You're not just the Morris, the Corunna, the Weberville coach. You are the coach to about 2,000 young men that you've raised to become full-grown men. And for that, we can't thank you enough. There can be no greater legacy in the history of the world to do what you've done. No amount of wealth, no amount of gifts, no amount of things can you do to do that. It was the Reverend Billy Graham who once said, a coach will impact more young people in a year than the average person will do in a lifetime. Selfishly, all this time I thought you were just my coach. I thought you were just the St. Paul Blue Waves coach. You were just the Little Greens coach. And yeah, I loved going to speak up north to the Morris High School football team at your cabin. I loved coming to different schools at Weberville and in the gymnasium giving those speeches to your team. I loved all of that. But you have been the coach to thousands of young souls all over mid-Michigan. And for those of us that had the opportunity to play for you, it was the single greatest experience of our lifetime. And we are the luckiest kids and now adults to be alive to have you as our friend, as our mentor, as our coach, as our leader. And I'm going to close with this. I'm going to read that Robert Brooks quote again. One of the most important factors that contributes to the resilience in children is the presence of at least one person who believes in them. So I think every single one of you would acknowledge that Bill's put in 38 years of coaching. Bill, that's a job well done. You can sleep well at night knowing of what you've accomplished. But for the rest of us, I'm challenging every single one of you, to be that one person that believes in your nieces and your nephews, to be that one person that believes in your sons and your daughters, to believe and be that one person that believes in those Little League baseball and basketball, football players, to believe in the youth of today, and then volunteer your time as Coach Bill McCarrick has done and make a difference in their lives. I love you, Bill. You're always going to be with me. I can't wait to see you in August and hand deliver you signed copies of the Last Undefeated season. And so all of you moving forward, I also challenge you to, no matter what the future holds for all of us, is to never let life defeat us. And all we got to do is hear Bill's whistle one more time, line up under that goalpost just one more time, and continue running time lapse. And if we do that, nothing that life throws at us can stop us. Because all of you, because you have the DNA of Bill McCarrick encoded in your body, mind, spirit, and soul. You have the spirit of Bill McCarrick residing within you for life. Because of that, you are an unstoppable force of power, fully capable of achieving your destiny. So I now challenge you to go back to your communities. Love your wife, love your children, love your kids, and donate your time and be the next generation of the Bill McCarrick coach, so that millions of kids one day can evolve from this coaching tree of the one and almighty Coach William McCarrick. I love you. I believe in you. I'm proud of you. I'm thankful to you. And I'm always here for you, just like you've been here for me. God bless. I love you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill. Let's give a standing ovation right now as loud as you can so people that live on the backside of Wilman Field can hear you clap. Let's give Bill McCarrick a big award again.
All right, Pat, I'm gonna let you go. Okay? Bye. Hey, there's some things that I know that none of you guys know. I was around when Bill first started. I was his very first player. Serious. That was in 1971 when he coached me. Oh, 73. Sorry. Anyways, and but you know, through the years, I've seen him go to practice, come down to these fields, and go to football practice. And he didn't have money to even get there. He walked. He had shoes that were duct taped. He put duct tape around his shoes so he could come and coach you. That was real. He gave up so much for the thing he loved the most. And that's what I wanted to say. John. Yeah. Hold on.
Thanks. Well, he's got a whole thing. I'm gonna read right over your shoulder. Okay, hello, my name is Don Hemmisberg. I'm also known as Coach Hem or Hemi. I coached with Bill for 3 years, from 94 to 96 at Morris High School. Worst 3 years of my life. No, actually, some of the best 3 years. I remember them more than any other years in my teaching career. Last time, just a little story here, but last time I gave a speech where Bill was in the attendance, was at my dad's funeral, and I wrote a thank you letter to my dad. I remember while reading that letter, I would look up and see Bill smiling and nodding when I spoke. That gave me great confidence as I read that letter. And just recently, this is ironic, but recently I was at a funeral and a friend of mine was reading his dad's eulogy, and he said he looked up and he saw me nodding and smiling as he gave that speech. He said that it really helped him get through the speech. Bill's lessons are still with me. Now I'm going to have to tell you, I'm a little upset with Dan. Don't too much. Because I was told, I thought this was going to be a roast for Bill. So that's what I prepared for. So it's too late to change now. So thanks a lot, Dan. So, has anyone here ever watched The Office? Michael Scott? Okay. You'll have an idea what I'm doing here. Okay, so here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. First of all, if you're here for the Tim Hammond's book signing, it's at the soccer field. I gotta make another announcement. The Fred Lab Roast for next week has been canceled because of lack of interest. So, again, welcome to the roast of Coach Bill McCarrick. For this roast, I spent some time in the park yesterday feeding the pigeons, thinking about this roast. I have some thoughts about Bill and what I want to share for you. Bill, you ending your lineman drills by throwing the football at the end of it was not a good look. You throw the football like a soccer player or a lineman. Now your job is to say, boom, roast it. So let's everyone go, boom, roast it. Bill, your second grade teacher, wants it to be known that it was not her fault that you cannot count past 11. Boom, roast it. Only the Moors players understand that joke. We played a team, they had 12 players on the field. For what, 3 plays? 4 plays. Bill, Vince Lombardi wants his Eagle 7 defense back because you cannot, obviously, run it right. Boom, roast it. And Jack's getting after Dan now. Didn't know you were going to a roast, right? Okay. Bill, when I asked you to run up to score against Vesterberg, I meant by 40 points, not 70, and not to fight the coach at the middle of the field. You won the conference, but did not win Coach of the Year. Who does that? Boom, roasted. By the way, ironic that this is not true. I saw that coach like 2 years later, and he came up and he's like, that McCarrick's an ass, and I'm like, yeah, really, I agree. I threw it, no. Because he coached at Ithaca, and I was at Hemlock, so I said, okay. Oh, by the way, because of that football game, many of the Morris players did not get conference honors, so Tim Hammond and Max Bryson, boom, you've been roasted. Okay, here we go. Bill, George Eiler still does not know who you are. Boom, roasted. At a Freeland game, I came up and introduced, I knew George at Freeland. I came up and introduced him. This is like 14, 15 years after George had been coached by him. And I introduced him to George, and George didn't know who he was. Oh, okay, here we go. Bill, your attempt to be Woody Hayes in the cold rain at Marine City Cardinal Mooney was voted by the team to be the dumbest thing you did that season. Boom, roasted. Sorry. Okay, Bill, this one's not true, but I made this one. Bill, during your important timeouts with the team by asking, what would Vince do? What would Vince do? Did not work and did not help the team. Boom, roasted. Vince Lombardi. The guy lives. Okay. Okay, so finally, Bill, you can take down the Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers posters down from your bedroom wall. They do not play for the Packers anymore. Boom, roasted. No, seriously though, Bill was a great person and friend to coach with. He made decisions that were best for the team. He was willing to make coaching changes and adjustments that many coaches would not do. Our goal as a staff was to do what we could to bring success, the most success for the players and the team. We wanted to win very badly for the students, parents, teachers, staff, and the town of Morris. In conclusion, I have told my own 4 children that I would have loved to have Bill coach them in any day of the week and twice on Sunday. I consider Bill a great friend and mentor, and good luck to Bill on your book.
Our next model. So my name's Kirk DeFriend. I had the pleasure to play for Bill many times in many different sports. 7th grade wrestling, 8, 9, 10U travel baseball, then high school football, and I came back and coached with Bill a couple years after I was done with college. And I wouldn't trade that time for anything. Like everybody said, I don't know if everybody knows this, so I lost my dad when I was 12 years old. And that was the 7th grade year. Wrestling season was shortly after that. So Bill was truly a father figure to me, not only then, but throughout my career as an athlete. He's taught me many things that I've handed down to my 3 kids. He's just a great guy. One of the isms that wasn't told in the first story was my 5 least favorite words ever to hear Bill speak was time to fill the tank. I don't know if everybody's heard that, but every Thursday in my senior year, it was time to fill a tank, and I didn't look forward to filling the tank. That's why I make my wife fill up my car from now on. But Bill had a great knack for bringing out the best in all the players. I mean, I think I can say I've never had a losing season as Bill was my coach. And it's not because, we had the greatest athletes ever, but Bill brought out the best athleticism in all the athletes that played with us. Back in Morris, we had, at the time we had 24, 25 kids on the team, which was a lot of kids for a Class D school. And a lot of kids never played football before, but like Danny Reichstetter was a kid. He never played football, but he would give his heart for anybody on the team. And that's the kind of, potential that Bill brought out in all the kids that he coached. And so I just want to say, thanks, Bill, for all the years of great coaching, all the great mentorship, and truly being a father for me growing up as a kid. Thank you.
Well, I learned I was going to be speaking here right before I showed up. I had absolutely nothing prepared. But I will say this about Coach. Coach was not just my football coach. And granted, I played baseball for him one year when he made me, and I really shined that year for him. But Coach was more of a father figure than just a coach to me. When I was 17, I joined the Marines. Well, I tried to join, but apparently you need your mother's signature. And she wouldn't sign until I came and talked to Coach McCarrick. Coach found my reasons for why I wanted to join, and amazingly enough, once he gave his blessing, I was able to join the Marines. I carried the lessons that Coach taught me all over the world. I've seen a lot of stuff, nothing quite as bad as time lapse, I would say. Definitely not enjoyable. I will say if we're talking Coach McCarrick isms though, the one that I always had was he would say, pay me now or pay me later. That one instilled fear into me, more than almost anything I've ever heard. I can't really, I can't think of another name that I would call him besides Coach. I don't know if it's beyond just the regular billet of a guy of a job for somebody. It's a term of endearment. And I know a lot of my fellow players feel the exact same way. I was talking to one of my friends I played with for Coach, and I asked him, I said, hey, are you going to Coach thing? I didn't have to say Coach McCarrick. We have lots of coaches. He knew exactly who I was talking about when I asked him that. I said the impact that coach has had on me, I can't describe. The only thing I can say to him is I appreciate everything you did for us. I appreciate the character that you instilled into us. Just thank you.
So Pat, I really appreciate Pat because Pat Snow set the precedent that I have 45 minutes. Thank you very much. But the truth is, if you know me, you know that I'm a pastor, and I've already worked today. My sermon was 2,738 words this morning, so I'm going to keep it to less than that now. I want to start by saying where I started in coaching, which was at Owasso High School. I don't remember what year it was. What was your first year at Morris? Whatever it was the year before that. I begged Tom Harkema to let me volunteer. I wanted to get into coaching. I never had the pleasure of playing for Bill, but I got into coaching at Owasso. I was a volunteer assistant, and so we went through the first year, and then it was great. I mean, it really was. It was a lot of fun. Bill was on the junior high staff at the time, and I remember thinking, this isn't right? I'm smart enough to know this isn't right. So then my second year at Owasso, we'd been through the summer workouts, and seasons was getting ready to start, and Bill comes up to me Sunday. We went to the same church, first church by the high school. Comes up to me and he says, hey, after church, he says, I want to talk to you about something. I said, okay, what's going on? He said, I just got hired at Morris. I said, really? He said, yes. I want to hire you. And I said, you want to hire me to do what? He says, I want you to be my JV football coach. And I said, okay, I need to go and get Tom's permission to leave the staff first. And which Tom, he was really quick at saying, yeah, go ahead. And so then my adventure at Morris began. I'm going to skip ahead. I guess I'm not skipping ahead. The next note I have here, it's kind of fun to be over here. I've been in Owasso. I mean, this is my hometown, but I've been away a long, long time, and I really don't care if people want to get ticked at me. I don't care what they think anymore. So I'm just going to say, this is in my notes. Bill never received his coaching due at Owasso. Never, right? And I never understood that, because here's the truth. When I was younger, I had no idea what school politics were all about. And as I got older, unfortunately, I found out. And to this day, I still watch it every day. But Bill never, so when he was coaching at the junior high, I remember thinking, this is horse crap. I probably thought differently then, but something like that. But I also remember thinking, what a blessing it is for these boys at the junior high to have this guy coaching them. So we move off to Morris. Bill is the first coach the first one ever offered me a paid coaching job. And I was really excited about that until I realized it costs you money to coach high school sports, right? You go in debt. You go in debt. I coached with Bill, I think I told Pat 5 years. Maybe it just seemed like 5 because Hemmersburg said it was only 3 years. That doesn't make sense. I think you're wrong, Don. Let me give a shout out to Pat. I really appreciated him mentioning my name. Was it twice, Don? I think he said it.
He said 10,
there you go. Hey, you've had your time. So let me do this. I want to share a few stories. My first year with Bill, we were at Bellevue. I think I can tell the story. He's not here. We were at Bellevue, and I'm up in the booth with the headset on, and we're in the second half of the game, and I'm trying to get Bill's attention. Bill. I had a brilliant idea. I don't remember what the brilliant idea was, but he wouldn't listen to me. Bill. And I'm looking across the field, and I'm seeing equipment flying. I'm seeing helmets. You know where this is going, right? Helmets flying, I just see a mad fiasco. And Bill! I'm trying to get his attention, and finally, as calm as he could be, Fred, I've just thrown Ryan Darling off the team. All right, we're ready to go? Yep, here we go. That was my Ryan Darling story. Is Ryan here? No? Okay. Another story I have is we had this trip to Whitmore Prescott. I had no idea where Whitmore Prescott was, but we get on the school bus and we drive to Whitmore Prescott. It took 6 days to get there. We get there and we get beat. I thought it was 42-0, but somebody else said 63-8. We were so far in the sticks that I swear they were going to come out of their locker room wearing flannel uniforms. I remember it was Tim Tyson, right? Touchdown, and they had this banner up. 42. He had already scored 42 touchdowns that year, and every time he scored, they put another banner up. They beat us so bad. And then the beautiful thing is we had this 5-day ride back. Well, Hemsburg makes this brilliant decision that he's not riding the bus. He's going duck hunting with his dad. And Bill, he decides, well, we had a player get injured. I better go and check on this player. Fred, do you mind riding the bus back with the team? See, I was still earning my stripes. And I said, no, Coach, I'm happy to do that. We just got back yesterday. So there's another quick story I'll share with you. There's a lot of untruth about this story about Eric Granda. You guys, Eric Granda was a remember Granda, Don? There was this official. We played at Sacred Heart. I'm an intensely loyal individual. Intensely loyal. And when my friends or my team or my players, I feel like they're getting screwed, I can't sit still. And there was a face mask call at the end of the game that really screwed us, and we ended up losing that game. And I came a little unhinged. But the rumor was, matter of fact, Roger Leach got a phone call, and this is not true. Did Roger Leach got a call? And I got called in to meet with Roger. The rumor was Jim Rhodes and I followed this official to his car, cussing him out. That is not, to this day, that's not true. I don't use those words. That is the truth. I did not use that word. Now, we did yell at him on the field. How about this? I'm shocked that Don didn't tell the story. When we finally beat Weberville on the bus ride home, Bill is a very humble guy. And he decides to have the bus driver stop. For what purpose? He wants to put the Morris Orioles sticker on the Weberville sign. You forgot about that, didn't you? That was quite fun. I remember Hemsburg would call plays, and half the reason I coached on this team was for the laughs. It was that much fun. I remember Hemsburg would call plays. And remember the play 45 GT? Don, we're over here. Remember the play 45 GT? He would call 45 GT, and then after every play call, he'd say the same thing. Tell Sean Mary not to fumble. Remember? Tell Sean Mary not to fumble. And Bill would say, why are you putting negative thoughts in his head? I don't know the Judas Priest. Oh, that was the line. Judas. He would say Judas Priest because he couldn't say in front of the kids what he really wanted to say, I think. All right, well, here's the truth. Pat Snow talked about how bad our football was at Owasso. My 2 years at Owasso as a varsity player, I won one football game. We beat Clio 10-0 my senior year, so I mean, they made me 1-17. We had really good athletes, right? We had really good athletes. The week of the week before our first game, our senior year, our coach quit, and I remember thinking, I hope they hire this man. I hope they hire this man. And they didn't. They did the next best thing, and they hired Don Gerber. Now Don's in the Hall of Fame. Ed Gerber. See, there you go. They hired Ed. If they had hired Don, we might have won 2 games. But here's the truth. The last few years I've been on the Portland staff over on the other side of Lansing, and the last 3 years they've asked me to be a coach, and I don't want to coach football anymore because of the time it takes. I'm just their chaplain, and I'm there for whatever practices I want to go to, and I'm there for every game. Before every game, I get to read scripture with these young men in the locker room, and I get to pray with them before every single game. It's one of the best honors that I have. And it's the best pure football I've ever been around. And in the last 2 years, we're 25-2. 25-2. And I have seen high school football a long time. And I remember the first year, we were, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. We get to 7-0, and I'm asking myself, are we really this good, or am I seeing a lot of really bad high school football? And then I found out as we went into the playoffs that we were really that good. But here's the truth. In all of that time, in all of my coaching, I've coached in Owasso, I've coached in Morris, I've coached in Ohio, I've coached in Lake Odessa, I've coached now a little bit in Portland. And all of that time, the truth is this, I have never had more fun than coaching with Bill McCarrick and Don Hemmisberg. And I mean, in all seriousness, I have never had more fun than coaching on that staff with those guys. It has been it's been an absolute joy. We keep talking about trying to get together and go to see a game. I keep trying to talk those guys into coming over to a Portland game this year. Maybe we'll do that. But I've never had more fun than that. When I moved to Ohio, I think that was in 1996. This is how much I respected Bill and even Don, and how much I appreciated how hard the kids at Morris worked, because they were right. Kirk was right. We didn't have great talent, but we had great kids. The year before Bill got hired, I went to a Morris game at Vesterberg. A friend of mine was from Vesterberg, so I went with him. I'm not exaggerating when I say Morris had 11 kids. 11 kids on their football team. And the very next year, Bill got hired and everything changed. But I would drive back from Ohio once a week for practice, and then I would come back on Friday nights for games, and people would say, why would you do that? And it wasn't because you got paid so well. It's because it was so much fun, and I learned so much from, and if I'm being honest with you, I'm not going to say I learned a lot about X's and O's from Bill. I learned a lot about how to develop young men. I learned a lot about what it meant to be a leader of young men. And that really meant a lot to me. The last few years, let me close with this. The last few years, I've coached my kids in all their sports. And when I coach Little League stuff now, it doesn't matter what their age is, but I always have a parent meeting first. And I explain to the parents, first thing I do after I draft the kids, I call the parents and I explain to them who I am, and I explain, listen, I want you to know something about me. And the first thing is, I will never swear at your child. Never. I will never swear at your kid. And they laugh. I'm like, no, I'm serious. I just won't. I don't think swearing at little kids is a good idea. I think it's different when you get to maybe on a varsity level. But I'll never swear at your kids. And then when we meet and we have on the field the first day, I explain to them, nobody will ever, I don't care how long you play, nobody will ever coach you or your kid harder than I will coach your kid. I don't know another way, right? I coach them very hard. And I'm amazed at what people will say to me. Usually they say it to my wife, they don't say it to me. And they'll just say really positive things, but sometimes people will say, can I ask you a question? And I say, yeah. Why do you coach the way you coach? So with Little League, I always have one goal. I don't really care if we win or not. My goal, and I'm an intensely competitive person, but my goal with kids is this. I want them to say at the end of the year, man, that was fun. I want to do it again next year. That's my goal with kids. But I'm really hard on them. And people will say, why do you coach the way you do? And I say, that's an easy thing for me to answer. I'll give you two names, Dave Hohenshaw and Bill McCarrick. Those are the guys that taught me how to do it. And Bill, I am forever grateful. Matter of fact, I had the privilege a couple years ago of doing Dave Hohenshaw's funeral, and that was a great honor for me. And I didn't know that day that I would receive another honor, and that's when we were standing outside the church. Bill walked out, gave me a hug, and he said, I want you to do my funeral. And I said, we could do it tomorrow? No, I sincerely, my friend, I can't say thank you enough. I love you.
So Bill, I think Patrick forgot one thing to mention, is that one of his greatest takeaways from you has to be your long-windedness at the end of football practices. I think you forgot to include that. So. I'm Tim Hammond. I graduated from Morris in '98. I was a freshman the summer of '94 going into my freshman year, and literally a week before football practice, Roger Leach hires Bill McCarrick to be our football coach. It was all that summer, the JV coach had kind of been running workouts, and that week before, they bring Bill in, and he introduces him, and Bill goes, "Yep, okay, well, we're gonna have a lot of fun." And that was not long-winded that time. So we're like, okay. He set the tone early on. Within the first week of practice, we had a player who was one of, if not the best player on the team, decided to go up to Bill and said, "Bill, I think, Coach, I think practices are too long." And Bill goes, "Well, you don't have to be here." He goes, "No, that's not what I mean." Bill goes, I know what you mean, but we're not shortening practice." And eventually it led to that player stripping down to his girdle, throwing all his pads, leaving a trail past where I was on the JV team, past all of us, yelling back, "I hope you have a good season." And without missing a beat, Bill goes, "Well, we'll have a better one without you." And from that point, we were like, all right, I guess this is serious now. So that set the tone, and it's been mentioned many times, but one of the things that Bill always demanded was hard work, and everybody has talked about that. I've mentioned time lapse, flying V's haven't been mentioned. I'm a little surprised about that. Mention any Morris football player time lapse and flying V's, and they get a little dizzy. So we knew going into practice we were going to have to work hard, but Bill's greatest strength as a coach is a motivator. And even though you knew you were, as Kirk mentioned, you're going to have to fill your tank, you're going to do time lapse, you're going to do the flying V's, Bill taught you the importance behind it. It wasn't just, we're going to do this to do this. It's that we're going to work hard so that we're better conditioned, we're better prepared coming into Friday night. And we always felt that way going onto the field, that we knew nobody had worked harder than us leading up to that game. One of Bill's other strengths as a coach was letting them coach. And that sounds weird, but Bill knew his strength was to motivate. Bill admitted many times X's and O's isn't his strength, but he would let his coaches do that. When my junior year, when he let Don Hemisberg call the offense, that was kind of unheard of at that time, that the head coach didn't call the offensive plays. And that year we went 7-2, won the conference, went to the playoffs for the first time in school history, won 2 games, and only lost to the eventual state champions. And that started a string of 4 straight years of going to the playoffs. And during that time, Don took another teaching job, so unfortunately he had left. New coaches came in, but it was the same thing. Bill didn't let his ego get in the way. He let his coaches coach. And I had the great privilege to be able to coach with him for a number of years, and he did the same then. He let me call the offense, and after I left, he did the same. Jeremy Freed got to call it. He let Chris Haas call plays. He never demanded that all the attention or all the glory go to him. He let his coaches coach, and that was just a great privilege to be able to coach under you and have the opportunities that we did. All in all, what you've meant to me, Bill, the opportunities that you gave me as a player and a coach, the life lessons that you've learned, I carry with me every single day. There is not a day that goes by that I don't think about something to do with Morris football, whether it be as a player, as a coach. Just getting older and trying to stay in shape, I still do some workouts that we did back in the day, just because that's what I know. And every time I'm doing those, it just takes me back to being a player and those great times that we had. So thank you, Bill. Thank you for everything you brought to myself, all of us. We all appreciate you. Thank you.
I'm not a very good speaker. I'm not a coach or a teacher or anything, but one of Bill's Billisms, or whatever
when I was thinking about it was, you didn't want to be, you could be beat by a team that was better than you, but you didn't want to be beat by a team that was less conditioned than you. You know, and we were always in the best condition we could be in. I wrote a couple things down. I want to take a minute to recognize someone who played a big role in my life growing up, Bill McCarrick. From the time I was a kid in high school, or even before high school, I was Little League midgets playing for Bill. He was a constant. He was my coach, my mentor, one of my best friends a young person could ask for. He was the guy who made sure I had a ride to practice, who showed up on time every time. He didn't just coach the game, he helped shape and approach life, whether it was on the field or off the field, Bill led by example. He didn't have to say a lot, just being around him, you picked up how to handle yourself and how to treat people and lead with confidence but not ego. And I'm a leader at work, and I think about Bill a lot of times just the way I lead the young people at work. And he's been a great example to me. He's always got me to practice. He was like a dad figure when my dad wasn't around, and I just appreciate him immensely. And I want him to know that. I'm glad that you guys are here for me to say that to him. You know, it's a great thing to have Bill in my life. And I've always wanted to say stuff, and I've tried to, when I've seen him in passing, I've tried to tell him how important he was, but this is a perfect opportunity. Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
You wouldn't mind if I jump in? What?
I just found out about this fairly recently. Roger Smith there, if anybody knows him. By the way, Mark Hammond. I had graduated from Perry High School in 1999. That year, my wrestling coach was Bill McCarrick. I had 3 wrestling coaches over my career at Perry. Bill was the best. If I had had him for 4 years, like some of our athletes got close, but I hoped I carried on what he implemented it with our team. And I honestly think he probably doesn't get enough credit for what he set up for what happened at Perry after he left. And I just wanted to say that to him now, and it's been a while since I talked to him, but as I listen to people talk about him, I'm like, yeah, the reason I became a coach was because of Bill. At least one of the reasons. There's probably other ones, but definitely one is this man right here. And I'm rambling a little bit, but let me just give the background of there was talk during that time of Perry and Morris coming together as one school, and Bill always said, I want to make sure if that happens, Perry knows who I am. And that's how I got lucky enough to have him be my coach my senior year. We started the season with 10 guys. Yeah, we finished with 5, and we were tough as nails after he got to be our coach for a season. Way tougher than I was any time before. And after that, we didn't get enough guys around the next season, but we had a really good group that was coming up as freshmen. So I was his assistant for the middle school team that he coached in 2000, and then I was assistant for the varsity team in 2001, 2002. And then because of this guy right here, I wasn't the head coach right away, but that was a good choice. We had another guy come in, and I was his assistant, Brian Weiler, great guy, another mentor of mine. And then in 2007, 2008, 2009, I finally became the varsity wrestling coach at Perry. And I just want to say thank you, Bill. It's been a long time. I wish I kept in touch better, but I'm so glad I get to say that to you now.
I don't know. I didn't write this, so this is not me. I'm going to come back later and speak about my dad, but this is from Tom. So Tom, Tom wrote something that he wanted to share. Tom was a player that played with my dad back in the day. I don't even know when that was. Back when they had, I think they had leather helmets back then. I think that's how long ago that was. I'm gonna have to zoom in because this is in a picture. But in late October 1971, I was already friends with Bill. We played football, and everyone knew the OHS Trojans football was in a decline. Like you already heard many times, they weren't very good. Like many, I was less than enthusiastic about practicing. Not so Bill. Several new drills designed to get us fired up ended with coach apparently mad with my let's get this over with efforts. He quickly replaced the kid I was supposed to block in a half-line scrimmage with Bill. I didn't like that. Even though we were friends, I would never have admitted that Bill was only one of 3 or 4 teammates that I feared facing. We were going to go man-to-man offense against defense linemen to see who was better. I got in his stance and looked straight ahead, not angry or afraid or disappointed. I squared up with him, and on the snap signal, he easily pushed me into the backfield. I was embarrassed. When I was picked myself up, Bill was already in his stance. I squared up again and found Bill on top of me again, and then found him waiting in his stance for the next contest before I could even stand back up. This time, just before the next snap, Bill looked straight ahead and said, "Come on, Fox," with no emotion in his voice, but most of the team used lots of emotion and started taunting me. I lined up, and this time, on the snap, I pushed him backwards until he fell. I was all ready to stand and taunt him, but he pushed me off and ran back into his stance and waited for the next snap. I walked back and got into position. He still looked straight ahead, and at that snap, I landed on my back with Bill on top. He took long enough to say, "Come on, Fox," and ran back to his stance. By now, the whole team was into it, so I continued going back and forth. I couldn't get the better of him twice in a row, but yet, I know I won. In all honesty, I don't know how many times I pushed Bill back or how many times he tested me. If I had to guess, I'd say Bill had more wins. I know he was the better lineman, but I still won.
I'm going to get a copy of that, right?
Mom's got it. Mom sent this to me because she didn't want to talk. He said this is his first time. As the contest continued and I became exhausted, I knew Bill had to be at least a little tired, but didn't show. Well, before the drill ended, I didn't think I could go on and wanted to quit, but I kept lining back up, preparing to collide. Whether he climbed off from burying me or pushed me off the top of him, Bill ran back into his position every time and looked straight ahead, ready for the next snap. Showing no signs of quitting, he had to be tired. Now I know I didn't run back to my position as fast or look so ready to go as Bill, but I wasn't going to quit. Well, he was always ready for the next collision. The next line finally ended, the half line finally ended and practice ended. God, I know I wouldn't have lasted another snap. Bill and I walked into the locker room together, both claiming to have won. That day, we became legends in our own minds, and we still talk about it. Bill taught me by example, never quit. And that lesson from Coach Bill was my win. So see, Bill, I won. Just like that.
Just like the advantage other people are talking about, not to interrupt, but I feel like I have an advantage in my life too, because no one does.
So I'm Drew Richard. I kind of came in later down the road than everyone else here, and I wrestled. I didn't want to wrestle, but my mom forced me to go to practice as a 4th grader. And I remember the first time I ever met Bill. It was 2004. We were in the old Morris band room where we used to practice, and he had Brent there, and Brent and Bill were doing demonstrations for the club wrestling. And all I remember thinking is, man, this old guy's gonna get himself hurt. Brent was in high school in his prime condition, and Bill was old. And you know, he was tough, but he was trying to build a club program, so practices were fun. And I remember the end of the first practice, we all got in a circle, and Bill brought out a king-size Kit Kat bar. And he handed it out, and he said, this is for the best wrestler, whoever practiced the hardest, whatever. And I didn't get it. And then he gave us Tootsie Rolls, the rest of us just a handful of Tootsie Rolls. And I remember going home thinking, man, I thought I should have got that Kit Kat bar. So that was the only reason I went back to the next practice. And I was bound and determined that I was going to get the candy bar the second practice. Practice came to an end, and I didn't get it. And I was watching these other kids as we were practicing, and I'm thinking, man, I'm working harder than them. In my head, I was doing better than everyone. Third practice, same thing. Fourth, fifth, I could never get the Kit Kat bar, but by then, he had me hooked on the sport of wrestling, and I really started enjoying it. And from that point on, we traveled all over the state wrestling club tournaments, and I never officially, well, he was my club head coach, and then a couple years later, there was a new coach for the club, but Bill never quit coaching me. Every practice he was there, every tournament, him and Carla would show up to. In 8th grade, I transferred to Weberville, and because Morris wasn't going to have a varsity wrestling team, and every practice, Bill was in the Weberville wrestling room. He wasn't a coach, he was just there coaching me. Every tournament, every weekend, he showed up, and he taught me a lot. The Billisms, the hurt, or are you hurt or are you injured? I wrestled my whole senior year with a broken hand, and he got mad at me for wanting to tape it because I was showing weakness to the opponents. But he always showed tough love, I guess. There was a lot of tough and not a whole lot of love, it seemed like. It seemed like every match, whether I won or lost, there was always something at the end of it that I heard about doing wrong. Especially when I told the ref that he made a bad call. And that's when Bill taught me a life lesson, don't leave your fate in someone else's hands. If I would have scored more points or kept the other kid from scoring points, and the ref wouldn't have had a say in the outcome of the match. We traveled all over. We went out to Virginia to a wrestling camp. Bill drove my dad and I and a buddy of mine out there. And we always had fun. We stopped at Kings Island Amusement Park on the way home. My dad hates roller coasters because of the hills. We went and rode one of the roller coasters. It's back in the woods. You can't see it. And we all came out. My dad was waiting for us, and me and my buddy started saying, "Oh, there's no hills on it." And Bill fed right into it with us, and we got my dad on the roller coaster. And we came around the first corner, and he wasn't too thrilled with us. It was a straight climb to drop off. High school came around. I decided I was going to take up pole vaulting. Bill decided he was going to learn about pole vaulting. And he showed up to track meets, track practice. Didn't know how to pole vault, but he did research and was trying to help me with it. So it wasn't just wrestling. And then one other Billism I didn't hear anyone talk about was breathing is optional. So my senior year, there's a little story to go with this. My senior year, having a pretty good season, wrestling an opponent that I was better than. I got caught in a headlock and put on my back. And I tried rolling through the headlock, couldn't get out. And I remember a way to circling out of it that Bill taught us in club. But Bill told us, it's going to get tight, you're not going to be able to breathe for a few. But once you're out, you can breathe, so no big deal. So, well, it's either this or get pinned, so I try it. The next thing I remember is the ref shaking me. I passed out. And I got up, and after I realized what was going on, I lost the match, unconscious. I had to ask Bill about breathing being optional. And I think that was the only time he'd ever lied to me. But, we traveled all over the state. We traveled to Virginia. never once, not that coaching made a lot of money, but never once was he a paid coach to be my coach. He was 100% a volunteer. And the older I get, like I started thinking about this the last couple days, what I wanted to say. And now that I'm older and grown and have a life, like when you're a kid, coach shows up, that's what you expect. You don't think anything of it. But looking back now, he donated so much time to everyone, but I feel like he donated so much of his time to me. I can't imagine how many hours or dollars it equals how much he invested into me, just because he believed in me. And a couple years after I graduated, we went out to Cafe Sports in Perry for dinner for my birthday. And I asked him, I said, Coach, I got one question out of all these years that you coaching me. He said, what's that? I said, you remember giving out candy bars? And he said, yeah, I do. I said, why didn't I ever get a candy bar? I mean, he had me demonstrate moves in front of the rest of the club like I was one of the better wrestlers on the team. And he said, because I had you hooked. He said, I knew you were coming back with or without a candy bar, but some of them other kids that weren't confident or weren't good at as good as you, he said, getting that candy bar, that brought him back into the wrestling room. And that's what he wanted, to get kids involved and have kids to coach. So I guess that's all I got, but thanks, Coach, and thanks, Carla, for all the time that you gave Coach to coach me, and I appreciate everything.
This is actually me, not Brett McCarrick. This is not Pat Snow, right? I'm not anybody else. I'm going to give you my speech now. I'm not quite as winded as my dad, so you're welcome. And I'm definitely not as winded as Pat Snow is, so you're also welcome. I don't have 45 minutes to give you, so I'll make this short and sweet. Yeah, I know what you're all thinking. Great to leave it to the coach's son to wrap things up. All right, don't worry, I promise I'm not as long as winded as my dad. But first off, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It means so much to see you all here. And honestly, I feel like I already know most of you, not because we've all met before, but because I've heard so many stories. Some of them, a lot more than others. Just hear them over and over again. He tells them different ways, different variations, different versions, but I hear the same story multiple times. So I appreciate them. I've heard every one of these stories I think that you guys have told today. I think I've heard them all like 3 or 4 times. I think I was telling Kevin in the back, hey, this is what they're going to say next, and I was correct. So heard them a couple times. But what this shows me is how much you all mean to him, right? He tells so many stories. You all mean so much to him, not just the vice versa. Probably more than you even realize, right? The stories that he tells nonstop all the time. He so many stories about y'all. Now coaching your own kids. So now coaching your own kids in sports. That's not easy, right? You got to coach me. It's definitely not an easy thing. I'm learning that firsthand with my own kids. They want you to be dad at practice, but the team needs you to be coach, and the kid, he needs you to be both. It's a tough line to walk, but my dad did it so well. At practice, he was coach. At games, he was coach. Sometimes even in the car after the game, still coach. But there's this one time, not too far from here at the Wausau varsity field, where we were talking so long after the game, and we were in the car, so he was still coach. But we were in the car, the lights got shut off, the doors got locked, the gates got locked. We couldn't leave. We were stuck in the field. He talked so long. I think it was like an hour and a half, or it might have felt like 2 days. But he had to call somebody to get us out. We were stuck. I threw my helmet. You don't throw your helmet. So we talked for a day. But as soon as we left, the moment we left that field, the moment that we figured out, finally, we're able to get past the gates, he was back to dad, right? Back to dad, no longer lecturing, no longer a talk. We were back to dad, back to father-son. that balance is something that I really try to emulate, not with my own kids, right? It's very difficult, but I try to do the same thing with my own kids. It's not easy, but I had a pretty great example. So thank you for that. Quick poll, okay? Quick poll. How many of you played baseball for my dad? Any of you play baseball? A couple of you. Just a couple of you. How many of you know that he's never played a day of baseball in his life? Never one day of baseball in his entire life, right? You wouldn't know that. Nobody would know that. I wouldn't know that.
Baseball wasn't a real sport.
Baseball.
Like basketball.
It was basketball, I think. Basketball wasn't the real sport. It's pretty wild, though. Pretty wild to see that. But yet he coached it like a pro, right? And now he's right back at it, coaching from the bleachers, from Gavin's playing. My son's named Gavin. He was there yesterday, right? We spent 2 hours baseball and then t-ball afterwards. We had an hour break in between. My dad's out there coaching baseball. So we say he's retired. This is a retirement party for my dad, but he's still coaching. He was coaching Gavin up, and by the time he was done, the kid's hitting balls to the middle of the outfield. Couldn't hit a single ball during the game, but he hit balls to the outfield after the game. So he some great lessons that were taught there. Some of you know that I threw at Michigan State. I was a shot put discus thrower at Michigan State. Go green. Thank you. Just like Drew was talking about, he pole vaulted. Didn't know a single thing. The one sport that my dad didn't actually coach is the one sport that I actually went to play college for and got a college for. Weird how that works. I'm not sure how that worked out. But he wasn't my coach in high school, right? He was my baseball coach, and I got to do both. But he studied up. He read books. He bought videos. He bought everything to figure out how the heck to coach shot put, right? He knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about it. But yet he coached me and helped me to become a state champion, to become a record holder that just got broke, and then to go to Michigan State for a scholarship. So I wouldn't have had that without you. So I appreciate you there. He didn't get that credit. He's never gotten that credit as a throws coach. He should have been a throws coach in another life. So thank you for that, Dan. If you played for my dad, you probably heard a couple phrases. We talked about these coacherisms or Billerisms. Some of the things that stood out to me, some of the coacherisms that hit me hard was, are you hurt or are you injured? We heard that one, right? Are you hurt or are you injured? But there's some backstory behind that. I mean, he's got some things. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about this, because if you're injured, you need to sit out. Right? We all know that. You need to sit out. Maybe go to the hospital. Right? If you're injured, that's what that means. If you're hurt, get your butt back in the game. You're not that hurt. You're fine. Get back in the game. You're hurt. You're injured. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. You know, Justin Brugge comes to mind. Kid broke his hip. With Justin. Matt Brugge broke his hip in a game or in a scrimmage, and they kept yelling, "Are you hurt? Are you injured? You hurt? Are you injured? You hurt? You're injured." He goes, "Well, I think I'm injured, but I can go back in." No, I think you're injured, Matt. You need to sit back out. So the hurt or the injured thing is something that has gotten me a long way. Simple and direct, tough as nails. That's the mindset that stuck to me, not just in sports, but in life. It wasn't about being careless. It wasn't about being resilient. Knowing your limits and knowing when you still had to give more. Toughness wasn't something my dad did or that he taught, but it's something he experienced and did himself. Right? Toughness. How many of you know he has one eye? Right? Yeah, that's a thing. Can you imagine how hard that was to go through that surgery? Right? To have your eye removed. There was a football injury initially. Right, a football injury that he had initially, and then he had to go through a wrestling meet. It was actually a wrestling meet that kind of was the last straw. He had a big wrestling meet that was the last straw, correct? Yeah, a big last straw. So he told this story. I think I've heard this story many times. I'm gonna probably mess it up, but he was going into a big match, one of his final matches, and he re-injured that, re-injured it, and he found OJ, one of the athletic directors or athletic trainers, and said, "Hey, if coach sees me like this, he knows I'm not going to be able to wrestle. He's going to be done. He's going to set me on the bench. I'm done." What he did is OJ took my dad, put him in the training room, turned the lights off, and then finally, once he was up to wrestle, came and got my dad, put him back on the mat, and allowed him to wrestle. I believe you won that match. Yeah, I believe you won that match.
I lost it.
Oh, well, not as good of a story.
Well,
Can we say that you won? But he still finished that match, and still show up for the team, right? He showed toughness, put toughness first, and showed up for his team. That's something that's really stuck up with me a lot as well. So when I'm hurt, when I'm battling through things, a broken foot, arm surgeries, anything that I've had going on in my life, I think back, he's had a lot worse than me. Had eye removed, had to go through some of those things. So the toughness has really stuck out to me, and that's something that I've learned and been taught from him. So I appreciate that. And then you all remember the speeches, right? The speeches, the things that he speaks about. I think Tim mentioned some of the talks. I think that Fred, maybe you mentioned some of the talks, but his motivation and his speeches before games were huge. And one of the speeches that stand out the most to me was one that I didn't even play in. I wasn't even a part of the game. I was the ball boy. I believe, Pablo, you guys were playing in this game, but it was a Kingston game, right? Kingston game. Kingston was 11-0, undefeated team, #1 team in the state of Michigan for Division 8 or Division D or whatever, Double D or Triple D or whatever we were back then. We were 5-4. Morris barely made it into the playoffs. Probably shouldn't have been in the playoffs. We were predicted to just get slaughtered, just demolished. And I remember sitting as a kid, as a ball boy, listening to this speech. My dad gave an awesome speech. Took us through a visualization session that I took part of. I'm not sure why. As a ball boy, I was taking part of this visualization session, but I was sitting there visualizing maybe getting the ball out to the field properly. I'm not really sure what I was doing there, but he gave awesome speech about see yourself making scoring touchdowns, see yourself making tackles, see yourself making tackles for a loss, see yourself winning. Right, so he gave this speech, and then he goes and he writes on the white portion of the football, believe. Remember that? Believe. He writes believe on the football. To this day, that word is stuck out to me. Believe is like one of the things that if I get another tattoo, it's going to be believe someplace on my leg or something. But believe is just the kids believe. They believe that they could win, and they end up going out and they destroyed that team. The score we were just talking about was like. Tim's got it, 39-0. The team that we should have been slaughtered by, they won 39-0. Went on and was that the start of the playoffs, the first playoff game, and then you guys won 2 more after there or something. So pretty awesome. So I have to say this little thing. I forgot to mention this, but the word believe has stuck with me ever since. Long before Ted Lasso made it popular, right? Ted Lasso put the believe up there. He made it more popular back before Ted Lasso. So I think maybe Ted Lasso got that. But that's... So Dad, thank you for everything. Thank you for being my coach, my motivator, my teacher, for showing me what it means to be tough, to be committed, to be present. You didn't just coach a game, you coached people, you coached me. Before I close, I want to give a huge thanks to my uncle, my aunts, the family that showed up to support, to provide food, to make this thing happen. So thank you all for that. Because his legacy isn't just about the scoreboards or the trophies, it's in us. In every athlete he pushed, in every kid he believed in, and every one of us who still hears his voice in our heads, telling us we're just hurt, not injured, that it's a long ways from our heart. How many of us heard that? It's a long ways from our heart. Yep, that's something that we hear a lot. And that if we believe, we can do anything. So thank you, Dad. We love you. I appreciate you.
Hey, you guys been hearing this. I want you to guess how many teams Bill coached. Different teams. I'm not talking, I know he coached at Morris for like 9, 10 teams, years or whatever. How many teams did he coach? He coached 18 different teams. 18. And he coached many of them teams many, many years. Yeah, one other thing I wanted to say was, the fields that are here, in even Lions Field and whatever, you wouldn't believe how many times he would get me up at like 10 o'clock in the morning and say, come on. I go, where are we going? He'd go, come on, we're going. We'd go over and work on the field for hours and hours and hours so that you guys could play at 6 o'clock. You guys didn't know that. You didn't know that he worked like that, right? Then we'd go home after the game, after he coached, and he would study all night long to be a better coach. That is no lie. He would, books after books, he had Carl can say he's got tons of books on how to be a better coach. That's why he pencil Barty and all that, because he read all their books. He wanted to be the best he could be at. You guys didn't know that. So his day was like 20 hours of coaching every day. I mean, it would be like every day we would do this. Every field. Every field we worked at. I got one more person who wanted to say something, and then you can go, Bill.
All right, Coach McCarrick, one more. Okay, I never had the privilege of playing football for this man because in junior high, they had the Owasso Junior High Warriors, purple and white, fight. 1987, 1988, they had heavyweight football, they had lightweight football. Coach McCarrick coached lightweight football, which obviously I was too big to play back then. So, but I do have one football story. Well, let me start with this so it'll make sense. You know, besides being coached in wrestling by this man in 1988. When I grew up, I had the honor and privilege to have children with his niece. So I went from being a student in wrestling to actually becoming part of this man's family. And I had the honor to be able to stay in touch with him throughout the years through family events and things like that. And they have a family cabin up in Kalkaska at Lost Lake, I believe it's called. And I remember we were up there one weekend and he had the kids from Morris up there. Man, was he putting it to them. And I'm just standing there and I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, welcome to Coach McCarrick's world, you know what I'm saying? But there's a reason for that because those kids were winners. I remember, I kept in touch with all of that because of course, football is life. Wrestling is life too, but football is life. So I just wanted to share that, you know, with football. Now let's rewind for a minute back to 1988. All right, that whole basketball thing is not a sport. Football got over with, basketball started. So I went to go try out for the basketball team. I was too big, I didn't make it. I was just so disappointed. This man comes up to me, he says, JR, come here for a minute, I want to talk to you, I want to show you something. Takes me down into the basement of the junior high of the wrestling room. And he says, what do you think about wrestling? Now, since I was a little kid, I knew about Hulk Hogan and all that stuff, and I was like, wrestling? I always wanted to grow up and become a pro wrestler. And I was like, wrestling? Yeah, I'd like to do wrestling. Then I found out the next day that scholastic wrestling is not pro wrestling. I remember my first day of wrestling, I worked so hard, he brought, which I can call him umpire McCarrick, because that's how I knew Dan. He was my umpire over there when I played midget league for Anthony's Dares Light. So, okay, he had just graduated high school, which we talked about this yesterday, which, oh man, the memories. Coach McCarrick would bring him in to work with the bigger kids, like myself. 185-pound JR, and boy, did he work me. And he worked me, and he worked me, and I remember throwing up, and over to the corner, threw up in the bucket. And I was so embarrassed, I'm like, man. He comes to me and he says, JR, there's no throwing up in wrestling. And I'm like, little did he know I ate like 4 huge peanut butter and jelly sandwiches before wrestling, right? So I'm thinking, man, I'm starving, I need some energy. I never did that again. And he says, I want your keister back on the mat. Trust me, he didn't use the word keister. There's too many kids here. I'm gonna keep it PG. Anyways, umpire McCarrick worked me, and he worked me, and he worked me. The whole breathing thing, it's the truth. He says, you don't need to breathe. So I'm like, I can't breathe. Believe it or not, I died that day. I died that day. He looks down at me, and he said, then I said, it's too hard. And I'll never forget these words. He looks down at me and he says, JR, it's supposed to be hard, because if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it. And I was like, whoa. That was the turning point of my life. And I not only stuck it out, I only lost 2 matches that year. I lost 1 match during the regular season, and I lost to the kid that placed first in state that year. And I was so disappointed in myself. I remember going over in the corner and I'm crying because I'm thinking I disappointed my parents, I disappointed my team, and I disappointed my coach. And he come over and he's like, JR, it's all right. You scored more points on that kid than any other kid all year. Awesome. So I'm like, okay, we get to the Lakeville tournament by the end of the season. This is the only time I ever lost that season. I got to whoever wins goes on to the gold and the silver. The kid that I wrestled, he ended up beating me, and I was so upset. You know, which, believe it or not, that kid went on and won first place. So then I went to the next match, which was for 3rd to 4th place, and I'm like, I'm not losing. I don't care. I don't care what I got to do. I not only went on to win, you know, first tournament I'd ever wrestled, never wrestled before in my life till that year. So I got 3rd place. I was just so happy. That's all I cared, because all I remembered was what he told me. Now, real quick, my mouth's dry and I'm trying to keep it together here. I was able, obviously, to grow up, and I did live my dream, and I became a professional wrestler. Now, I remember the first day of practice, and everybody's like, oh, that stuff. I'm just gonna say the F word, because I don't say that word in the same sense with professional wrestling. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And all I'm thinking to myself was, man, this doesn't feel very F word. You know, I'm getting my butt kicked, but I remembered. The guy that was training me that day twisted my ankle so hard I thought he was gonna pop it, but I remember breaking out of it, and I'm thinking to myself, man, the heck with this, I ain't dealing with this. And I thought of 2 things. I'm like, Jared, you always wanted to do this, you're not a quitter. And number 2, I remembered what Coach McCarrick said to me, believe it or not. And I'm 29 years old, and I still remembered what he said to me at 14, that it's supposed to be hard, because if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it. So I still to this day take his words, and I took it into professional wrestling. That I worked hard, I never gave up, no matter how many times I got hurt, how many times I was just like, man, this is just not for me, because I just, you know, but I would snap out of it because I think about Coach McCarrick. Now, real quick, I'm honored to know this man personally. Here, let me do this. I'm very honored to know you personally. You're my uncle, Coach McCarrick. You know, you will always be my uncle, Coach McCarrick. I'm honored to have 3 beautiful children and now 2 grandchildren that are from the McCarricks, which was like, ooh, you know, when I found out when I had met Karen, and I found out who her uncles were, and I was like, Coach McCarrick. I was like, wow, okay, small Owasso. But I want to thank you for what you've done for me as a kid, and then growing up to bring it, you know, to the professional level, whether it's sports entertainment or not. But what you taught me as a child, to never get up, and that no matter how hard it is, you can do it. I still bring that to this day. And I want to thank you, Coach. I want to tell you that I love you. And real quick, if you guys don't mind, this is my tribute to Coach McCarrick, and I hope you guys all can play along with me. And yes, it's a little professional wrestling promo, so I don't want to scare any kids. Let you know ahead of time. All right, I'm the Mighty Sabbath, and I want to tell each and every one of you today that if you are not down with Coach McCarrick, with my weapons of mass destruction, you will fall. Yeah! Thanks. Wait, one more thing. Oh, I almost forgot one more thing. Here's my roast. With the whole puke thing, Coach, I gotta buy you a Lions jersey, brother. You know, because when I first saw you up here, I was like, hold it in, Jared. Hold it in. You know? All right, thanks, Coach.
Wow. I find myself thinking about what I would want to say, and I find myself speechless, believe it or not. Thank you for all coming. And understand that all of these accolades, it's only a drop in the bucket, because what I've learned from you far outweighs anything that I could possibly have taught you. And I mean that. You have become who I am. And without all of you, I would not be the person that I am today. And I'm very thankful for that. So this is an amazing night, something that I'll remember forever. And thank you for everything.
We love you, Coach!
Okay, so we picture.
I'll do some.
Okay. You take care of it. Yeah, you can do it wherever you say.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go this way. Let's go this way. Go line up here.
Go guys in the back! You gonna be in the front? You guys gonna be in the front row? What's that?